Thank you, everyone. Dave, thanks for that great introduction. I do want to just reiterate what Dave mentioned. NPBD has been a key partner of Monolith and truly the reason that we're in the state of Nebraska, and not only for power rates and reliability of power, but for relationship support. And that's an incredibly important point for this audience to understand, is that NPBD was a key reason for Monolith to locate to the state of Nebraska, and we'll perpetually be grateful for that support as we grow. So without further ado, let's talk about Monolith. Our vision is to be the world's leading clean hydrogen and materials company. And that is important because we take a view that hydrogen is really the key next pillar or third pillar of the energy transition. And no audience in the world understands the energy transition better than this group, and the fact that we've been spending most of our time, not only in the United States, but globally, focused on cleaning up the grid through wind and solar and other technologies to help us develop electricity in much cleaner ways. Battery storage is obviously a key component to reaching our decarbonization goals. But what we know today, as we think about our goals for 2030, 2040, and 2050, in order to reach those global decarbonization goals, we can't stop at electrifying the grid and at battery storage. We have to move into the phase of hydrogen, because hydrogen helps us reach that other half of decarbonization goals through reaching industries such as agriculture, refining, the chemical industry, steel industries, and all of those parts of the world that are responsible for about 50% of total CO2 emissions. It's an essential next step in our energy transition, and that's what Monolith does. We're a clean hydrogen producer. So let's talk about how we produce clean hydrogen. So Monolith produces clean hydrogen from electricity and natural gas. So we take natural gas, pipeline grade gas, either fossil gas, or we can use renewable natural gas. We heat that to very high temperatures using renewable electricity. We essentially crack that gas and liberate it into its original elements of hydrogen and carbon. The proprietary part of the Monolith process allows us to control the creation of that carbon molecule into a highly valuable solid carbon product called carbon black. Most of the world doesn't realize where carbon black goes, but for every tire on the planet, 1/3 of that tire is made up of carbon black. For these two processes, for every ton of hydrogen that's produced today in the traditional methods of producing these products, 11 tons of CO2 are emitted into the atmosphere. For every ton of carbon black that is produced, 2.3 tons of CO2 are emitted into the atmosphere. The Monolith technology allows us to take gas, crack it in an air-free environment, and produce zero CO2 locally as we produce those two products, and that's really the value proposition. What's really fundamental about this is because we take those two same feedstocks of renewable electricity and gas and produce two products in a CO2-free way. And we can sell those products, allowing us to produce and sell those products in a cost-competitive manner today. And that's why this technology is truly so revolutionary and happening right now in the state of Nebraska. The picture in the middle that I'll talk a lot more about today is the facility we call Olive Creek. It is about 25 miles south of Lincoln. It's our first commercial scale plant that was built in the state of Nebraska and is operating today, producing both of these two products. We're very proud of that. So our technology is proprietary, fundamentally taking natural gas, heating it to high temperatures, cracking it, and liberating those hydrogen and carbon molecules, turning that carbon molecule into a highly valuable product that we don't have to sequester. We can turn that into a highly valuable product that allows us to displace how it's currently produced, which is by burning oil. Okay, next slide. We've been at this journey for over 10 years now. In July of 2022, we celebrated our 10-year anniversary. We were originally founded in California, and so in 2012, our co-founders came together. They bought some technology and continued to advance that technology and built our first demonstration scale plant just about 30 miles south of San Francisco in the Bay Area, where we ran that facility for about 3 to 4 years, proving out our ability to take this technology and produce not only the hydrogen, but the carbon black and control the value creation of that carbon molecule into that highly valuable solid carbon product called carbon black. In about 2015, 2016, our co-founders met, John Swanson, Tom Kent, at the time Pat Pope, at a conference as we were determining where we would build our first commercial scale plant. The decision about that time was to build it in Nebraska. So we started that journey in that 2016 to 2018 timeframe, breaking ground on our facility just about 25 miles south of Lincoln. We finished construction of that facility in 2020, June of 2020 to be exact, and we all remember that because, of course, it was in the middle of the pandemic. And we started it up and successfully proved out our ability to not only produce these products at a demonstration scale, but to be able to produce it at a full commercial scale, which is the value of the facility we call Olive Creek in Hallam today, is proving out that technology at a much larger scale. Because of the demand for both products, carbon black and hydrogen are products that the world needs to feed itself, to run these industrial processes, to literally go around in a car tire. In early 2019, we actually started engineering design work on our expansion plant, which we're planning to build here in Nebraska as well, and I'll talk about that in detail in just a minute. So we've been on this journey for 10 years. Today, we're very focused on building out not just the first facility here in Nebraska, but our expansion plant, which we'll talk about in just a minute as well. And then due to the demand of both products globally, we're focused on where we'll build additional Monolith assets outside of the state of Nebraska. And thanks to what we've talked about a lot today, the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, most of those facilities will likely be built in the next decade here in the United States. Okay, next slide. Okay, let's talk about Olive Creek. Olive Creek 1 is the first commercial-scale methane pyrolysis facility built in the United States, and Monolith is final investment decision ready on our next facility. On the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see the picture of the Olive Creek facility. It sits just between NPPD's Sheldon Station and the village of Hallam, about 25 miles south of Lincoln. It is operational today, so we have a team of about 100 employees running that facility today, producing both products. It is commercial scale. So that is the size of technology that we will deploy. We have de-risked the technology, and so we'll simply be replicating that same size of technology as we grow here in Nebraska and other locations around the United States and world. It produces a little over 4,000 tons of hydrogen and about 14,000 tons of this valuable carbon product called carbon black. Our electricity load, an average load at that facility is about 18 megawatts. We completed it in June of 2020 and of course are located here in Nebraska. The Olive Creek 2 facility, and I'll spend quite a bit more time on this in the preceding slides, is an expansion of that same technology, essentially growing the capacity of both products by a factor of 12. So when it's done, it will produce about 60,000 tons of hydrogen, clean hydrogen annually, 180,000 tons of carbon black. Average load from a power perspective is 275 megawatts, so we are a large renewable power consumer, and we think of our power as a feedstock to our particular process. We just updated this date, and I didn't catch it in the slides, Dave, so I apologize, but we do expect that this facility will be completed in 2026. We anticipate beginning construction in the first half of 2023, so we're very close to beginning that construction process. This will happen on the same footprint that we're currently operating today in Hallam. So we'll grow a little bit to the north towards Sheldon Station, again, simply repeating the size and scale of technology that we built at Olive Creek 1 in order to increase capacity and meet market demand for both products. Okay, next slide. A couple things that I like to highlight that I think are really important as you think about building businesses like this is not only have we've been working on scaling up the technology, improving out the technology, but building a world-class team of people around us to do that. And so this is a bit of a highlight of our executive team, but throughout the organization of Monolith, which today is about 250 employees, we've worked hard to build a world-class team that can deploy this technology from the state of Nebraska. Next slide. We are also backed by some of the world's most significant private equity and investment funds, and that's very important. New technology like this does need investment. We're very fortunate to have some of the world's best investors, Mitsubishi Heavy Industry, Azimuth Capital Funds, Cornell Capital, Warburg Pincus, NextEra Energy, and SK Group, along with additional resources from TPG, their climate fund, BlackRock, and a number of other groups that have invested in the company to help bring this technology to market. So we're well capitalized in order to grow the business. Okay, next slide. Dave really wanted me to focus on Olive Creek 2, so I'll spend a few more minutes on that. Next slide, please. Okay, so again, just to reiterate, Olive Creek 2, and this picture is important. So on the left-hand side, the light blue shading, hopefully you can see that across the room, is literally a picture, an overhead picture of our Olive Creek 1 facility. Again, about 5,000 tons of hydrogen, 14 to 15,000 tons of carbon black produced there, and we consume about 18 megawatts of power in order to run that facility. In the green or kind of teal shading is where we'll expand on that footprint north of Hallam, between Hallam and Sheldon Station. And that's an engineering drawing of the Olive Creek 2 facility. The important things that we think about in the Olive Creek 2 facility, again, is that we don't have to size up the technology, so that technology has been de-risked. We're simply replicating that in order to produce more product to meet customer demand. The front end of our technology, so the core process technology, is the proprietary part of our process. And that process is simply being replicated here. The back end is a standard carbon black plant, and we've demonstrated our ability to use that and operate that facility successfully, and there's no technology risk there. In Nebraska, we will use our hydrogen and convert that to anhydrous ammonia. That's very important for the market here. We sit in the middle of the Corn Belt. We're a net importer of ammonia. Our farmers, particularly today after the Russia-Ukraine conflict, have supply chain constraints in order to get ammonia. It's high priced, and so we're very excited about the decision we made to use that hydrogen and convert it to anhydrous ammonia. We are partnering with KBR, a global leader in ammonia synthesis technology, and so that portion of our process technology is also de-risked. It's a common technology that's been deployed around the world. So that's our footprint here on the OC1 to OC2 scale up. Next slide, please. We've talked a lot about this today, and certainly this group knows the benefits of the Inflation Reduction Act from the PTCs and ITCs for the build-out of renewable, but Monolith also has significant benefits in that in this bill as well. So the Inflation Reduction Act created a hydrogen production tax credit. Section 45V of the IRA creates a new 10-year incentive for clean hydrogen production, use, or sale. I won't go through all the details on this slide. I think it's important for this group to understand that Monolith does not necessarily need the incentive. We had a great business model prior to the passage of the IRA, but the IRA, much like the scenario that you all are looking at, helps us grow more rapidly here in the United States, and it capitalizes the investment into technologies like Monolith. So we think it's very important. The Monolith technology has some unique advantages over other methods of producing clean hydrogen as well. We use pipeline gas primarily, but we can also use renewable natural gas. What that allows us to do is not only not produce CO2 or produce a very negligible amount of CO2 in our production process, but allows us to achieve negative amounts of CO2 production, because rather than having that gas being emitted into the atmosphere from landfills or from biogas sources and those kinds of things, we can mix that into our feedstock and use that and allow us to achieve carbon negative impact, which we're very excited about, and ensures that we're able to qualify at the highest levels for the hydrogen production tax credit. So very important piece of legislation that helps us grow, and certainly doesn't change our position here in Nebraska, but helps us grow more significantly here in the United States. Next slide, please. I want to talk a little bit about the ammonia market. It may not be a market that all of you study as much as we do at Monolith, but it's an important market, obviously, for the state of Nebraska. So at our Olive Creek 2 facility, we'll convert that hydrogen we talked about into about 275,000 tons of ammonia. State of Nebraska, the Corn Belt imports about 1.7 million tons of ammonia, so we get the opportunity to supply that important feedstock into our overall food production here in Nebraska, and most of that product will be used regionally in the state of Nebraska, Kansas, other areas as well. So we're very excited about that. We think it's really important that we're able to bring that production here into Nebraska and meet the needs of our farming population here. Next slide, please. We didn't talk a lot about this today because the primary objective here was to update you on our progress here in the state, but I do want to leave you with just a really important message around carbon black. It's a product that the world doesn't know a lot about. A third of every tire on the planet is made up of carbon black, but in this room alone, we're literally surrounded by it in all sorts of products. So if you all have cell phones, your cell phone will have carbon black in it. Any black plastic, black rubber, the mascara that I'm wearing has carbon black in it. You're literally surrounded by it, right? And our ability to convert gas into both of those products and sell that at a cost competitive level allows us to produce this essential product. and meet the needs of some of the world's largest manufacturing companies that produce tires. And so we've got some just snippets here to help understand the value of the carbon black product and why we are working so hard with MPPD on the additional build out of renewable, because they look at our total life cycle of how we produce our products. And obviously with electricity as a feedstock, it's important that that is clean power. So you see some comments here from Goodyear, from Michelin and Bridgestone, and the way in which they think about reaching their decarbonization goals and how important it is that we decarbonize a core product like carbon black, allow us to produce both products in a cost competitive way and reach markets that frankly the world hasn't reached yet in trying to obtain our decarbonization goals. So we're very excited about that. Okay, with that, I'm going to open it up for any questions you have on Olive Creek, the technology, or any of our other work at Monolith.
I was wondering, how do you plan to source your renewable natural gas?
Great question. So we have got an entire team focused around the procurement of natural gas, working with companies that have portfolios of projects around the country, some local projects as well that we're pursuing. It's obviously an area that is growing significantly thanks to the passage of the IRA, but we're really confident through some of our strategic partners and then the work that we'd already actually been doing before the IRA to procure RNG into our process. And so we do expect to be able to bring some of that in to our facility that we're operating today, Olive Creek 1. We haven't necessarily signed that contract, so I can't necessarily name a name today, but we're working on that and have a lot of confidence of our ability to do that, both through portfolio companies and then some really interesting local projects that we think are going to be a great fit for the state of Nebraska as well.
What was the date you had set for, or your speculative date for OC2's opening?
Opening would be in 2026. So we should start construction the first half of next year. It's about a 3-year construction cycle. And so we'd expect to turn the facility on and start producing product in 2026.
Just thinking to the future, climate scientists are suggesting that someday we may have to actually start removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Is that something you all are thinking about, of using the hydrogen to combine with CO2, so you're making your own natural gas, basically?
Yeah, synthetic methane is an interesting topic. So our first goal from a removal perspective is, number one, we have a technology that allows us to use the rich natural gas resources we have in a CO2-free way. So that's step one. We can blend renewable natural gas into our process, which of course is ensuring, gas is not emitted into the atmosphere and is used for productive purposes without producing CO2 and allow us to go carbon negative. There are some very interesting technologies out there developing that combine hydrogen with CO2 that, as we look at future uses of hydrogen, ammonia, there's an enormous market opportunity for us to continue to expand and produce ammonia for fertilizer purposes, but there's other uses as well. And so we're excited about some of the new things happening in the combination of hydrogen and CO2 where our product could be used. And also very supportive of all of the technologies, direct air capture and those kind of things that we think are going to get some significant advancements and be able to grow and help us reach our overall goals.
So once we get the anhydrous ammonia produced, what are the plans for how it gets distributed to where it needs to go? Are we looking at pipelines, trucks, rail?
Yeah, so we plan to truck the ammonia regionally into whether co-ops or to reach the farmers here. So that's our primary method. Our site does have rail access. That's how you predominantly move carbon black to large tire customers, that type of thing. But we don't expect to move the ammonia via rail in this region because we're largely probably going to be selling within a 200-mile radius of the facility. We imagine trucking that, and that's our intention today.
I see it up there on next steps, and sorry if you said it in the presentation, but you're still working on procuring the renewable energy for the facility, for the OC2 facility. Is that correct?
We are in the middle of the process with Nebraska Public Power for the RFP for the renewable power, yes.
Okay. And then the kind of follow-up question to that, so do you have to have that in place and online in order to market the hydrogen as green hydrogen?
Dave, do you want to take some of those questions on the RFP process?
So yes, we are working with Monolith and their consultant on the RFP process. We've got a short list developed. We've had detailed discussions with them. Monolith does have a plan that as they come online, their load may exceed what they're initially purchasing. So then they'll be in the market for renewable energy credits short time so they can meet their renewable that way. Long term, they want to have enough renewable energy on an annual basis to match their energy requirements. But initially, if those contracts are not in place, or one of the bigger challenges we're seeing now is projects in Nebraska, if they do not have a queue position, or they may not get it built by 2026. So that's a big concern. But they will be able to meet their renewable goals by buying REC short term. In addition, one of the things we're working jointly with DOE is that NPPD's carbon-free mix is approximately 62% right now. So if you start with that, then you don't need to buy 100% renewables. That's something we'll need to work through with DOE to make sure they're comfortable with that also. I also should mention that NPPD is not selling any power directly to Monolith. Norris Public Power District out of Beatrice is our wholesale power supplier, and they're the ones that will actually be selling the power to Monolith.
The original plan called for repowering the Sheldon Station. Mm-hmm. Is that still under consideration?
It is not. So we worked for several years and invested a lot of money in engineering design work to understand that was the original plan for us to sell the hydrogen to Sheldon. But through the partnership with MPBD in terms of understanding what it would cost to convert Sheldon to be able to process that hydrogen accordingly, together with the organizations made the decision that really wasn't the best and highest use of the hydrogen. The estimates came in 2 to 3 times higher than originally planned. And then as we looked at the ammonia market here in the Corn Belt, made the decision that it would be appropriate for us to convert that hydrogen into anhydrous ammonia for use as fertilizer in the Corn Belt. So it's not our plan. We talk a lot about future things. There's things that could happen in the future around hydrogen and use for power generation, those types of things. But our initial plan at Olive Creek 2 is to focus on fertilizer production in the Corn Belt.
Hello. You probably said this, I didn't catch it. Is Monolith publicly traded?
We are not publicly traded. We are privately held today by a combination of private equity and then some strategic investment as well. Okay, I did want to wrap up just with some clear kind of next steps. Our Olive Creek 2 facility is what we think of as final investment decision ready. We're very excited about that. Engineering work is done. We've got our commercial plans in place. The carbon black market are very committed to offtake of our product as well and working on financing of that. So we've got a few next steps, but again, expect to begin construction on the facility in the first half of 2023 and then begin to service the market in 2026 with additional volumes of hydrogen and carbon black. So thank you, Dave, for the invitation to speak today. I'll be around for any other questions afterwards as well.
And thank you, Amy. Let's give Amy a big round of applause.